Thanks so much for the comments. More coming up. We're also going to check in with Rich Hoffman to find out from him, and Rich is the guy behind the No Lakota Levy initiative prior to the last election. Find out from his perspective what's been going on. Get some more of your calls as well. It's 700 WL. Coming up today on The Big Show with Bill Cunningham, the dumpster diving superintendent joins Willie at 106. 106 this afternoon on The Big One. David on a cell, you're on 700 WLW.
Good morning. I want to chime in about some of this stuff. I agree with you. The $90,000 search firm expense is just ridiculous, no matter how you slice that. But with that said, I want to look back at. I remember when the Ohio Lottery was put in place about how it was supposed to be all about the schools and help fund the schools, and every week tens of millions of dollars are in some type of lotto super prize giveaway, and you've got Mega Millions. Everybody else in Ohio is involved with. How is it that those funds just don't seem to be seeping to the right places?
Well, and I've explained this a whole bunch, but I'll lay it out real quick because it's a shell game. At one point, they said we had X number of dollars going into the schools. And then they said, okay, we got the lottery, so we'll put that money in. And then they took the old monies that were coming from other sources out. It was a shell game. So, yeah, that money technically from the lottery goes into the schools. They just can put less money in from other places. Jim in Newport, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, because they said Lakota's got like 160 different curriculums. Why don't they cut some of them instead of the school buses? Because they don't need 160. Go back to the basics.
No, we could say that all across America. But you know what? Let's find out some of the details, though, about the curriculum and things going on in Lakota schools with Rich Hoffman. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. How did that less busing work out yesterday?
It was a freaking mess. It was absolutely. We talked about it last week, and we kind of jokes aside, it was a mess. I went out yesterday and filmed some things for our use. And I figured that the local news and they would cover the close-up shots of people getting out of their cars and everything. I went and got some long shots of the traffic that was backed up for miles, and it was at Lakota East about the peak of the morning, about 8:05. The traffic was backed up for about 1.5 miles. It was all the three main entrances were completely packed. It was backed up all the way down Cincinnati-Dayton Road, down Yankee, all the way up to the connector highway, and it looked like it was at about 20 to 30 minutes of people's drop-off times.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I don't see how they can do that every day. I mean, I'm sure to speed up a little bit. People discover that they can go through the Kroger parking lot and go around behind some of those strip malls there and come in from a different direction, but they just bottlenecked everything. I'd be curious to find out how much the police officers are getting paid for that extra service, because they had quite a few officers directing traffic just there, and if you consider all the different schools they had to do this with, I'm sure that's a legitimate expense. Yeah,
at that point it might be easier just to pay for the buses, as opposed to the officers.
For the amount of money you're talking about. I mean, we've heard different figures from $600,000 to I think yesterday they were saving $730-some thousand this year by cutting these buses, but the roadways aren't designed to hold it, and it's a real impediment to our community to do this. I mean, I'm with you. I think that having busing is a luxury that we've all become kind of used to. Mm-hmm. But the people have built their lives around it, and then you turn it off suddenly. I mean, people know what time their kid gets on the bus, so then they schedule their work hours around that, and then you've thrown this monkey wrench into it. And I really felt bad for a lot of the parents yesterday. It really bothered me to see the level of inconvenience that people were suffering from, and it was really disturbing.
Did you hear from any of the parents on your blog, or was anybody complaining about the levy not passing? Were they blaming you for their issues?
You know what? I knew you were going to ask that question, and I yesterday was the first day I didn't receive a single nasty email, and I couldn't figure out what it was. What was really going on with that?
It's because they were stuck in traffic, Rich. They were sitting in traffic. They couldn't get to their emails.
Good point. No, but they were on the computer. What happened was the opposite. Apparently the opposite thing happened. I checked the No Lakota numbers for the website that we have, and then the blog connected to that. Do I still have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard a beep. I checked the numbers, and we had as many hits just prior to the election yesterday that we had prior to the election. So people, and what they were looking at is that information that we have, the 434 teachers that make over $65,000 a year. People were looking at that yesterday. So people were hungry for information, and I think that, because we've definitely provided it. We don't really, it's a community service. You throw it out there because the school system's not putting it out there. We put it out there so people can make their own decisions.
So you think they're getting the information that the anger, the frustration of sitting, for 20 extra minutes to take your kid to school shouldn't be directed at you and people who oppose the levy, but rather the school for not placing the funds in the right places.
Oh, well, absolutely. And that looks to be what people did, because there was a huge hit on the increase in numbers and statistics that were looking at that stuff yesterday. It really kind of surprised me. I expected to see, I thought it'd be all pro people, looking for a way to kind of slander things I had posted and twist it around on me, but it was nothing. And it looked to be parents and people in the community looking to get information for themselves. As I was watching all this, I got some pretty good footage, and again, it was all a long shot, so I hope you get that posted tonight sometime.
Did you, as far as the cops go, and I'm sure this will speed up. The first day or first couple days always rough. A couple weeks from now, it'll speed up. They'll probably scale back police officers. It remains to be seen whether or not they'll need some. They'll probably need a couple here and there, which is an expense. Did the classes start on time with that much of a delay?
They appeared to be. I didn't see that there was any real problems. Looked like by 8:30, and I did some coverage at the at Lakota East, and then I covered the junior school over there just to see if I get see how the kids were walking, because there's a community there where they were definitely within the half-mile radius, and I was curious how many kids would walk. It was good to see that most parents were driving their kids and dropping them off, and not letting their kids walk, and they're doing the right thing. But we really shouldn't be in that kind of situation to begin with. I was reflecting on a situation that occurred in 2008 where because this is all about wages, really. It's about the fact that the community can't afford what we've been committed to as far as wage levels. And in 2008, they were threatening to strike. That's the teacher union, and everybody's sort of forgotten about that. But now we're seeing the effects of that. Now the bills come, and we're supposed to pay for it, but we don't have the money to do it. So the teachers got what they wanted. They got their pay increases. They got their respect, but now we can't pay for it. And they've maneuvered us in this situation, and no one stepped forward to try and renegotiate that or say, hey, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we should have not been so aggressive. Maybe we should have thought this thing through. Nobody has put that on the table. All he did is cut busing and inconvenience 9,000 some people and put 6,000 extra cars on the street. It was terrible.
Talking with Rich Hoffman, one of the guys behind the NoLakotaLevy.com. Have you been following the $90,000 to hire a treasurer and cook for a superintendent?
Yeah, and the political struggle on the board over that, because it looks like there's an attempted coup to change leadership, and that may or may not need to happen. And I understand the necessity of both sides. In fact, I went to the school board meeting, and I congratulated Joan, who's the president of the school board, on trying. This was before I thought they were going to spend $90,000, but on looking hard at a superintendent, someone who could come in here with a business sense possibly and look at this thing and get it under control. And maybe someone who could stand up and wasn't a part of the union. Because a lot of these guys that they hire as superintendents were. They paid into the union for a long time. They did their time. So it's got to be tough for them to sit across in a contract negotiation and say no, because they've benefited from it. So you need someone who's outside the system. So I thought that that's kind of the direction they were going, and they spent $90,000 looking for a treasurer and a superintendent.
So $40,000 to find the treasurer. It looks $50,000 for the superintendent. Rich, why can't they just put an ad online and a couple in the papers?
That's the thing, and that's kind of what. Her side is, we need to find the best candidate we can get.
But wait, Rich, what does $40,000 and $50,000 have to do with finding the best candidate? Where's this firm? Where are they looking that the school board couldn't be looking?
You're exactly right. What firm charges that kind of money for a search, and then to pay it and think that that's the expectation? And it gives you a snapshot of the mentality of what you're dealing with. When it comes to their world and the way finances we run. And I'll tell you something. We have put forth, that's the low Lakota people, and the people behind me who are business leaders in the community have volunteered. And I've got a lot of emails. I've had a lot of emails of people saying, hey, can you hook me up with the school board? And I will volunteer my time as a businessman who's been successful, and I have this business in Westchester, and then I do this. I'll volunteer my time to help them get their books balanced and to solve some of their problems. And that invitation's on the table now. It has been on the table since after the election. We reached across the aisle. I said, listen, all the people that were against this thing, or we were fighting before the election, let's get together. Here's my email. Let's talk. And nobody.
No, they don't want to do that.
Nobody responded. So, we're going on. We're starting this Educate Ohio group. And then, of course, there's the school choice meeting that's going to be tomorrow night in Mason. And these are all options for school funding. And life's going to march on. We're going to find a different way of doing this, but it's not going to be property tax-based funding for education. And it's not going to be at the level that everybody's become accustomed to, because that's irresponsible business.
All right. Well, thanks for the update. Keep me posted on what's going on, especially with the busing issues in the next couple of weeks. See if it settles down a little bit. All right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Rich Hoffman. And I've got a link up in my blog, 700WLW.com, to his. You can read more about the details where they do spend the money. Why would you ever need to spend $40,000? Why would you even have to spend $10,000 on looking for a superintendent or any employee? I mean, I understand you may have to put a couple of ads out there. All right, what is that, a few $1,000s in some big newspapers? If you knew nothing about any industry and I said you are now in charge of hiring somebody in this industry, how would you proceed? This isn't 40 years ago. The internet's out there. You'd get on. This is what I would do. I would get online, find some trade publications for that industry, put an ad in those. I'd probably put one locally here, and I would look within. Shouldn't that be what the school board's doing instead of spending $90,000 when they're saying we don't have enough money to provide busing, but they have $90,000 to do a job search when they could just put an ad in the paper? That's crazy. Some more of your calls coming up. 700 WL. Coming up today at 106 with Willie, how superintendents can save cash. And then tomorrow at 12:33, Willie's going to have the other side of the Lakota issue. So at 106 today, he's going to talk about how superintendents can save cash. 12:33 tomorrow, the other side of the Lakota issue. School choice is a big issue right now as we try to reform education. School choice. Should you be able to send your kids wherever you want? I mean, you pay taxes. Why should you be stuck in one school that just happens to be in your neighborhood? Certainly with technology, and we look online and we can reach beyond just brick and mortar schools. There is a school choice forum tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in Mason. It's at the Liberty Bible Academy, Old Simpson Road. I'm going to be there just to learn more about school choice. It's tomorrow night in Mason, 7 o'clock, Liberty Bible Academy, Old Simpson Road. Mason's had their issues, of course, with levies as well. Got Don and Amelia. You're next on 700 WLW.
Hey, good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. You touched on a subject last week about the West Claremont school districts wanting to put that new levy on.
Oh, yeah.
They just put another levy. They snuck in that the school board voted. It didn't have to come to the people for, I think it was $2.2 million. That didn't have to come to us for a vote, that they could put it in effect. And there is probably about 20 to 30 teachers and principals that are double dipping, that have already retired, and they're brought back to
as consultants.
As consultants, and we're paying them just as much to be consultants. You know, they want to cut money. You want to stop. You got to get rid of them and you might have a better chance of getting levies passed if you get rid of the double dippers.
Oh, listen, and that's the reason, and Don, that's the reason I'm so frustrated when it comes to unions, is that because they dig their heels in because they've created this own little world where they know this gravy just flows.
Well, yeah, it's also, I mean, my kid goes to Amelia School, and I'll tell you now, the teachers, they're rated excellent. Well, you know what? That's because they've changed the grade point, so the kids that would be getting Fs are getting Ds, so they pass, so they don't lose their funding.
Oh, yeah, they've got the power of I, where everybody gets an incomplete and you can finish up the work whenever. If it's 3 years from now, you can finish it up. They've got these programs now where nobody can fail. The least you could do is score a D. All of these because it's better for the kids' self-esteem and all this garbage, and you're right. If that's going into scoring the teachers, that's not quite right. Doreen in Waverly, you're on the big one.
Well, good morning, Doc.
Good morning, ma'am.
Scott Sloan mentioned something yesterday, and I think that should be mentioned again. He said eliminate kindergarten. When my kids were growing up 20 years ago, they had to know their ABCs and how to read certain words and all that. This was 20 years ago.
And look at how they turned out. They probably don't know a thing, do they, Doreen?
Hey, I've got nursing. My son's in nursing school, 3rd year, and my daughter's an assistant bank manager.
How can that be if they didn't go to kindergarten, Doreen?
Well, you know what? They've got Head Start now, and they're shoving these kids into Head Start at 3 years old.
You know, it's funny. Some studies show, too, that by 2nd, 3rd grade or so, the advantage you got with that Head Start is gone. They don't know anymore. They haven't learned anymore. The other kids have caught up. Head Start and some of those programs are just glorified babysitting services. This goes all the way up to college as well, though. We've got a system now that says you have to go to college. No longer can you go to a trade school or any of those things. It's got to be college. And you pay a gargantuan amount of money. You either take out loans or you drain your parents' savings or you save up for it. You set yourself back gargantuan amounts of money because you got to go to college. If you want to get a job, got to have that college education now. No longer can it be a high school education or just some high school or based on what you can do at that job. Got to go to college. The problem is they're not learning anything in college. I'll give you the details. Take some more of your calls next on 700 WL. As I speak, producer extraordinaire Russ Jackson is putting a link at my blog, 700WLW.com, brought to you by the American Trading Company. It is a salary website. It's a resource that shows salary of almost every school district in the state in multiple years, so you can see what your district is up to. He's going to put the link up there right now. To a couple more calls here. Sharon and Mason, how are you?
Hey, Doc. How you doing today?
Doing fine, ma'am.
Hey, listen, I saw an article yesterday in the paper about the Little Miami school district and the poor kids, and, these kids need these levies, blah, blah, blah. And it really, was really strumming on the heartstrings, and it's a whole apathy thing that goes into play here. Basically, I'm just so tired of hearing it's for the kids. It's not for the kids.
You mean the spending and all that?
The spending, yeah. Absolutely. People have taken pay cuts. They're not working as many hours. They're not getting pay increases. My health care costs went up over $100 a month. And yet Little Miami is still paying 100% of their employees' health care.
Oh, my golly.
They are still going to give out step increases this year.
See, that's Sharon, that's the thing that's so funny. When it comes to schools and government or whatever, they think that they should be immune from what all of us go through in the private sector, where guess what? The economy's down, so they're scaling back hours, they're firing people, and they're going to pay less of your benefits and stuff. But they somehow think they should be immune to all of that. It's crazy. They've created their own little world when it comes to education. These administrators, the unions, the superintendents, they've created this world that they want control of because they know it's a gravy train. And the same thing when it comes to higher education as well. They've created this idea that you must go to college. You have to have college to get a job. And people go to college to get ahead. What happens? Of course, they have more schooling, so they're probably going to get the job. So now everybody's got to have some college. 2 years isn't enough. Now you got to have 4. Eventually everybody's going to have a master's degree. And what would happen? You would still have people that need to haul the garbage or do blue-collar jobs, except they're going to be set back 60, 80, whatever, hundreds of thousands of dollars in schooling when they start their life, when they get out as an adult. And the problem is the schooling is not actually teaching them anything. Sloanie and Tracy are going to talk more about this today. A study is out of more than 2,300 undergraduates. They found that 45%, almost half of the students, show no significant improvement in the key measures of critical thinking, complex reasoning, and writing by the end of their sophomore years. 2 years of college. and they show no significant improvement in critical thinking, complex reasoning, and writing. Half did not take a single course requiring 20 pages of writing during their prior semester. A third did not take a single course requiring even 40 pages of reading per week. So what is the point? Seems to me the only point is, let's give money to people that run these schools and teach at these schools. That seems to be the only point of college. They've created this world where we get to just hand them money for no gain. Doc Thompson on the home of the Reds, 700 WLW.